No, it's important to grieve, to process this loss. Len was a special person to each of you. We're here today because his presence touched each of your lives, touched mine in the short time I knew him, and we remember him with deep gratitude. Even though we're still processing the finality of his passing, we know he has found victory in death because he's in the presence of Christ the King. We must be clear that our tears are for our own loss. He is in place now. Len is in a place where there's no more tears, no more pain, no more sorrow. And those things, those temporal experiences will never touch him again. The same God through whom Len had victory over death is present and available to each of us this morning through Jesus Christ. Let us turn to God then for comfort in these words of prayer. Please pray with me. God, our creator and source of all life, we bow before you today in need of your sustaining grace and love. As we gather here today, we know that we ache inside. We are burdened with questions and longings. We carry regrets for things undone and even unsaid. We carry an awareness of our own fragile mortality. Still, we thank you for the mystery of your presence among us as we gather with gratitude for the privilege of knowing Len and for the impact that he had on all of us. Draw close to us, we pray, and grant us an assurance of your compassion and companionship, even in the face of death. We bring to you the mix of feelings and questions and memories that stir inside us and ask for your blessing upon us this time together. Amen. I have some scripture readings here for us to reflect on. The Lord Jesus said to his friend Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. And in another place in the book of John, Jesus stated, do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If that were not so, I would have told you, because I am going there to prepare a place for you. Then, as the Apostle Paul stated to the church in Rome, for I am convinced that neither death nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers or heights or depths, nor any created thing will be able to separate us from the love of God that is in Jesus Christ. Amen. Now, this time I'm going to call Heather forward for a tribute.
I've already been told that what I have planned is too long, so I'm sorry, but not really, because this is my chance to talk about one of my favorite people. My dad, Leonard Douglas Jackson, was born at home on November 5th in the small farming community of Highland Creek, Ontario, which is now Scarborough, to his parents Arthur and Margaret Jackson. He was big brother to his brother David, who predeceased him. Those early days were not easy ones. World War II had just broken out 2 months prior, and finances were tight for my dad's parents. But the stories my dad told about his childhood paint a picture of a family that loved each other deeply. My dad was a true mama's boy. He claimed that he never remembered once leaving the house without telling his mom he loved her. He would also tell stories of how she didn't take any garbage from her 2 boys who quickly towered over her petite frame. He would reminisce about how she made him strip down to his underwear on the front porch at the Brighton house because he was covered in rotten tomatoes from the tomato fight he and his friends had in the fields of a nearby cannery. He rolled his eyes about how she forced him to include Uncle David in flying a huge kite with his friends, and then how Uncle David proceeded to get dragged across the field, which Dad then got in trouble myself that a lot of the things he said of Grandpa could be said of him too. This is because the quiet, subtle lessons that Grandpa taught Dad were the foundation of who he chose to be in life. A lot of the things that he passed on to us growing up came directly from my Grandpa Jackson. When my niece Jessica was a teen, she made a now well-known observation among the family about Dad, saying, "Grandpa is so intense," referring to how Dad was a deep thinker and had a tendency to say deep, profound things. It was a very teenage thing to say at the time, but it rang true to all of us and was a clear indication that the apple had not fallen far from the tree. As a boy, Dad was heavily involved in Boy Scouts. He recalled fondly as a young boy, along with other Boy Scouts, being a part of the replanting of the Ganaraska Forest. Recently, when I took my own class to a nearby outdoor education center, they had a display there of the replanting efforts with pictures. My dad was pleasantly pleased afterwards that I had the opportunity to share his story with them and talk about how even when it seems like we're small and can't make a difference, that we can still do things to help our planet. The tradition of being part of the scouting organization went on to be carried on from Dad to my brother, myself, and my niece Elaine, who reached the advanced Trex level in guides. From a very young age, my dad was a lover of animals. His best friend as a boy was his dog Scout. One Sunday, as Dad attended a church service with his Boy Scout troop, the minister talked about heaven and how one could go there one day. My dad, ever curious but also concerned, raised his hand and when called on, asked if animals went to heaven as well when they passed away. The minister responded that no, they didn't, as they didn't have a soul like human beings. My dad, ever loyal to his best friend, boldly announced to the entire congregation, much to my grandmother's horror, that, well, if my dog Scout isn't going to heaven, I don't want to go either. I'd like to think that Dad and Scout are playing a game of fetch together today, maybe along with Tiny and Heidi and Jenny and Winnie and Sadie as well. Eventually settling in Brighton at around the age of 13, my dad attended East Northumberland Secondary School. It was during those preteen and teenage years that Dad said he started to develop his faith and relationship with God. It is also when he met his high school sweetheart, Sharon. When they started their relationship, Sharon let him know clearly that he needed to know some things about her first. The first thing was that she didn't smoke or drink, and that she also didn't dance. He responded that, well, he didn't smoke or drink, and after pausing a bit, he said, well, I do like to dance, but I think I could give that up for you. At the time, she thought it quite romantic, but he got an earful a few months later when she realized he had been teasing her. While my dad had pretty great coordination on a basketball court, he had 2 left feet when it came to dancing. After graduating from high school, Dad went to Hamilton's Teacher College from 1960 to 61. He started his teaching career in Niagara District School Board as a classroom teacher, teaching grade 5 students. In 1963, Dad married Sharon, and as teachers often do when starting their careers, he bounced around from place to place before finding a permanent place to settle. Dad and Sharon had 3 children together, my brother Jim, my sisters Deneen and Melody, and eventually they settled in a home in Frankfurt, Ontario. At this time, my dad was instrumental in starting up the Voyageur Club, which was a club through his school that gave students an opportunity to learn skills that would help them enjoy the outdoors through hiking and canoeing. He also gained a specialist in teaching special education and worked with students who had diverse educational needs. In February of 1976, there was a house fire in their family home, and Sharon and Dad worked like a team that night, doing what parents do for their children, doing everything possibly to get them to safety. At one point, though, as Dad cleared the glass from the window he had broken from which to escape, he lost Dee's hand. When Dad talked to me about the fire years later, he recalled looking back into the house from the window and thinking, if I go back in there, I'm not coming out. It was then, as he heard my sister crying, that he hooked his feet over the sill of the window, planked out as far as he could, and reached for her, pulling her out. Dee had to be resuscitated 3 times that night and spent 4 months in the hospital at 9 years of age, but she survived. while Dee was in the hospital. He faced deep depression during that time. He watched Dee fight impossible odds to walk again and made preparations with Grandpa Hill to begin building a new home on the Frankfurt property. In 1977, Dad married my mom, Brenda, a school teacher from Stockdale. He referred to Mom as his lifesaver. After everything he'd been through, he hadn't thought that he could experience love again, and she had shown him otherwise. A couple of years later, in 1979, they had me. Dad was very open that he was not sure about having a fourth child. He had 3 already and was in his late 30s by that time, but Mom was 12 years younger and he gave in for her sake. He did admit to me that having me might have helped him keep younger longer, though also given him some gray hair. A few years later, Dad and Mom built their home in Codrington, where Dad enjoyed spending his time caring for the property, raising a variety of animal friends, and doing various construction projects. I distinctly remember sledding down the hill in Codrington with Dad on the back of the sled. He would let the sled go and go and go until he had me suspended over the creek. And then at the last minute, he'd pull me back, ever a tease. When trees would fall down around the Codrington property, he'd put Mel and I to work. We'd scale the trees with our hand saws, and we'd cut off all the small branches, and then when we were at a safe distance, he'd come in and he'd finish the job with his chainsaw. Birdie brush was a typical winter pastime for us in Codrington, and I distinctly remember one time when Dad thought the fire wasn't catching well in the snow, and he decided to throw on a small can of gasoline. He looked pretty silly with his singed eyebrows after the fact. I do think that Dad kind of fancied himself a farmer, though. His profession was teaching. He built a barn on the Codrington property and raised all manner of animals: dogs, cats, rabbits, guinea pigs, pheasants, banty hens, ducks, and geese. In the barn, he also had his wood shop, which he later moved into the basement. He built all manner of things that you can still see floating around most of our homes. Furniture pieces and toys in particular. One of my favorite memories of Dad in his shop was helping him make a wooden Noah's Ark set for my nephew Tyler, who was just a toddler at the time. You'll see him later, he's not a toddler anymore. Dad made the Ark, and then he helped me learn how to use the scroll saw to make each of the animal pairs. That Ark is still floating around in one of the great-grandchildren's rooms. Dad said that one of the things he loved most about woodworking was the joy that it brought to people he loved when he made them something special. When I was young, Dad started a new direction in his teaching career when he began teaching industrial arts. Teaching shop was the joy of his teaching career. While teaching in Trenton, Dad was proud of his students' many entries of their work in local fair competitions and his opportunities to coach both boys and girls intermediate basketball. He also worked hard to receive his degree in geography, driving back and forth from Trent University for years on the back roads. He retired from teaching in 1995, but even this past week, when I posted the news of his passing on Facebook, I received comments of condolence from some of his previous students that I've met over the years. His retirement was filled with volunteering, carpentry-related tasks, overseas relief, Habitat for Humanity, building toys, making model replicas of historical buildings, traveling, and of course golfing. He and Mom started the yearly tradition of traveling a couple months each year to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is a tradition that has been adopted by many family members over the years. At the age of 60, he discovered a new passion. And I'm going to say, thanks to me, he gave the credit to Mom, but I bought him that first book. It was never wise to get him talking about his most recent book, because he would always ruin the ending for you. Later, as the upkeep of the Codrington property grew arduous, Dad and Mom moved to Bowmanville and then more recently to Brooklyn. When I think of the things that my dad passed on to me, I can only think of how grateful I am. As a teacher myself, I have seen a lot of families, and I can guarantee you that there's not a perfect one out there. And there's not doing construction projects for free and helping with different charities, offering godly wisdom. He always tried to think of others first. He believed that in this life, we have been given the opportunity to make a difference, and that was important to him. Dad's faith was inspiring to me. His favorite individual in the Bible was Caleb. And for those who aren't familiar with Caleb, he was one of the spies sent by Moses into the Holy Land who came back reporting that he believed they should go forward, in spite of the dangers there. Caleb trusted that God would be there for him. I see why Dad liked Caleb. He had a lot in common with him. Dad was a faithful man. He believed in and trusted God. He, like Caleb, knew that with God by his side, he could face anything, because God had been faithful to him from time and time again. He wasn't loud about it. He didn't push it on you. But he was an ever faithful man. Despite Dad's admiration of Caleb, I actually always saw him more of a King David type, minus the murder and adultery part. One of the things that moved me most about Dad's faith was that he knew that God was not afraid of his questions and emotions. I know for a fact that on the night that I received what was likely the most life-altering news of my life, my dad spent a good deal of his time outside, looking at the stars, crying out to God and asking why. But that's how Dad and God spoke to each other, frankly, with no ceremony, honestly. And in the end, Dad would always decide to trust, even though it was hard. It wasn't easy. He was, like David, a man after God's own heart. I've been talking a lot to my boys and my husband this past week about how we'll miss Dad, and we will. He's here with all of us. The Jackson genes are strong, though. And I will notice him every time one of you chooses to do the right thing, even when it's hard. I will see him in your determination, in your competitiveness, your creativity, your resourcefulness, your hard work, and in your inevitably sarcastic humor. I'll remember him when one of you gets a mischievous twinkle in your eye and makes a teasing comment. I will notice he's still around when one of you sits back in your seat and crosses your ankle over your opposite knee, just so. I'll feel him when I take the time to make today a little bit better for somebody else. And one day, I am certain I will see him again. A few days before Dad passed, I was visiting him in the hospital. It was difficult. His speech in the past couple of weeks had regressed dramatically, but I did make out he was telling me that he'd been doing a lot of praying. And the next sentence contained the words, place of hope. He knew who he believed in and was persuaded that God was able to hold him through this transition and us through this moment. I know that right now it feels like a goodbye, but that's not what Dad thought it to be. And he'll be waiting for each one of you, praying for you, and hoping to see you again one day. See you later, Dad.
Thank you, Heather, for painting that wonderful mosaic of Lynn's life. Well, now I'm going to call Cindy and Adam to lead us in a hymn.
In one of his classes was Lanny Phillip, who was one of my brother-in-laws in later life. Len's first wife, Sharon Hill, was the daughter of the builder who helped my father, mother, and I to build our home in Glen Miller. I met Len, the teacher, at Farmer Street Public School in Trenton, which had been my old high school in the 1950s. The school had an interesting group of teachers and a new principal who had just completed an exchange teaching position in Australia, Burl Summers. A music teacher, Don Burke, a science teacher, Ken McClintock, who is with me this afternoon, and Dave Lindsay, and others. I had just finished 5 years teaching new math in secondary school in Belleville. One staff meeting, one coffee break, and I suggested we need an outers club program. Len's dad was a scout leader at provincial level. Both Dave Lindsay and Len had been active in Boy Scouts. So I, the new guy, said, let's do it. Our principal just watched and later began to participate. First, we needed canoes, a chocolate raffle. The first prize, 4 foot by 2 foot by 2 inch high chocolate bar. That came from World's Finest Chocolate. The schoolgirl who won the chocolate bar didn't like chocolate. So it sat in the school until the mice had a sample of it. But we got the money and our first of many canoes. We moved. I mean, the whole school moved. We became Queen Elizabeth Public School, like overnight. Don Burke had a music room. Ken McClintock, that fellow back there, he had a science room. I had my own art room. And Len, well, he got a workshop with all the toys. Then he told me what he was doing. Building homes for others. Habitat for Humanity. We both have had much experience in fixing homes. So why not share that knowledge with others? Len was way ahead of me. The Thursday crew were an awesome group, as my child would say. Some teachers, a policeman, and a couple of others who came in and out as their retired time allowed. Coburg was a mess. My wife says I'm not supposed to say that, but I'm going to say that. The military base had closed in the late 50s and 60s. The Habitat for Humanity was given the officers' buildings, their homes. But they were well past being good homes. Asbestos shingles, furnaces in the attic, mold everywhere, wires everywhere. And we, as a knowledgeable group, came and conquered. Our reward? Cupcakes. I'm very grateful and new homes. I'm sorry Len's gone, but he will be remembered in the hearts and minds as a leader, a teacher, a builder, and an all-right guy.
Thank you, Gene. Certainly lots of reflections here. Special memories. So I could call Stephanie now.
All right, hello. Thank you everyone for being here today. It truly means so much to have so many friends and family here to celebrate the life of my grandpa. As I'm sure you've all read the obituary, I don't want to stand here and reiterate what you've already read and know about Leonard Jackson. Instead, I'm going to tell you who he was to me and who he was to my parents. As his sixth grandchild, my grandpa was already pretty seasoned in that area by the time I came around. He had settled into his role of wise, funny, handyman grandfather quite easily, as it wasn't all that different from his role as a dad. When I think of my grandpa, I see him lounging on the couch in the sunroom of the Codrington house, his blue crewneck sweater on, and glasses perched on his nose while he did his word search with those infamous black or red pencils, the kind you have to pull on the side to sharpen it. I remember sitting with him at the breakfast table, his bowl full to the rim with Cheerios, always using a big spoon, something my mom has also taken over. I remember his love for all animals, but especially his golden retrievers, even if they were a little wild sometimes, like Sadie. I remember going out with him to pick out the handles for the desk that he built me. I remember him driving around on his lawnmower, a rite of passage for the older cousins who came before me to drive. I always remember him telling me the story of when him and Grandma, watched me when my parents went to China to get my younger sister Samantha. He was fixing the water pipes in the basement and I played beside him on the ground with all of my toys. All of a sudden, muddy water just started bursting down the pipe, and in my 5-year-old mind, the most important things were my toys. I kept yelling, my toys, my toys, and I'm trying to pick them up and run with them. Meanwhile, Grandpa's just soaking in muddy, gross water. He loved telling me the story and would laugh while recalling it. To me, my grandpa was a quiet and gentle man, yet strong and stoic at the same time, and in the most important ways. My grandpa was what any right, faithful man of God should be. I might have been the sixth grandchild, but I knew the number never mattered to Grandpa, not for any of us. He loved us all with the same unconditional, quiet, and ever steady love. That was Leonard Jackson to me. My dad entered into the Jackson world in 1988 when he first started dating my mom and then marrying her shortly after in November 1989. Through nearly 36 years, my dad got to build a relationship with his father-in-law, and there are two memories he's asked me to share with you today. The first is when he asked Grandpa to teach him how to golf, something Grandpa only agreed to do if he played how my grandpa played, which was left-handed. needless to say, my dad was pretty paranoid when he heard the crashing. So paranoid that the black bear had returned that he decided the best course of action was to jump the pool wall and escape. Just as he was about halfway over, Grandpa's golden retriever at the time, Winifred, came out from the brush. Grandpa looked at Dad and said, "Oh great, you were going to leave me." To which Dad replied, "Better the old than the young." They would always laugh and recall that memory very fondly. Now I would like to share some stories and memories with you from my mom, Melody, Leonard's third child. One of the earliest memories my mom has of her dad is him throwing her in the pool in the spring when they opened the pool because of how badly she would like him to open it so that she could go swimming. Mom remembers when Grandpa drove to Trent University and wouldn't get home until really late, but Grandma would let her stay up and wait for him. When he got home, she would run into his arms and he would throw her up in the air. On Sundays after church, Grandpa would take them canoeing, him in the back and Mom at the front. And just like any other parent fearing for their life at the hands of their child when they're driving or steering, Grandpa would yell, "Draw!" to Mom whenever she would come too close to the rocks. In public school, Mom was on the basketball team that was competing against the team that Grandpa coached. Mom remembers just how hard of a time Grandpa had because he so badly wanted to cheer for her, but he was the coach for the opposite team. When Grandpa taught shop, Mom would meet him after school to help him clean up, and she remembers just how amazing the fresh wood smelled, and just how special the quality time was with her dad, even if it was just cleaning. Even now, when she smells wood, she thinks of her dad. He never failed to give her a hug and kiss goodnight, always telling her how much he loved her every night before they went to sleep. As Mom grew into adulthood and married life, she remembers the many pieces of furniture her dad built for her homes, the many projects he was integral in completing with her, like helping to build the extension on their home or fixing the flat roof of Mom and Dad's first marital home. Mom recalls bringing me home from China and all Grandpa wanted to do was hold me, the much anticipated and fought for first child of my parents. But I would only cry when I went to anyone besides my mom. Grandpa took me and walked with me in his arms around the yard, and while he sang to me in his off-tune voice, I finally stopped crying. I always remember him joking about how maybe I stopped crying because I wanted him to stop singing. After the big ice storm in 1997, after days of being without power, Mom drove to Grandma and Grandpa's home, and she remembers the relief and safety she felt when she got there and Grandpa said, "There is a hot tub of water waiting for you. I'll watch Steph." One of the memories that Grandpa would tell Mom frequently over the years was one that meant a lot to him, and I feel he would like to share in moments like this with all of you. He recalled how after the fire and how after everything going wrong that could go wrong, he hadn't cried. Not after the house burned down, not after his wife passed away, not after his oldest daughter suffered such severe burns she was told that she would never walk again. The money was running out to rebuild the Frankfurt home, the other two kids were acting out, and his whole life had been turned upside down in one night. Finally, one afternoon he went out and fell to the ground beneath the apple tree on the hill behind their Frankfurt property, and he cried. The tears flowed like a river, and he asked God why this was happening. Why did he do this? And he pleaded for God's help. Grandpa said he could have sworn he heard someone say, "It's about time." From that day forward, it was like everything started to fall back into place for what it was. Money was deposited into the account anonymously to finish the Frankfurt home. The kids were able to move into their newly built home, and it helped to regulate them and give them some sense of normalcy again. Dee not only just walked again, but would one day run. The final memory I will share with you today is from my mom, and one that she's always told me and my sister, and it's something that was imparted from her dad. Every day, try and make someone else's day a little bit better. And I think that message alone can sum up who Leonard Douglas Jackson was as a father, a husband, a grandfather, and a person. No matter the tragedies life threw at him, it didn't harden his heart, and it didn't stop him from loving or living life to its fullest, or showing kindness to those around him. His life was a walking example of a man of faith who believed in God's bigger plan. Throughout his life, he exemplified courage, strength, joy, and perseverance, even through the most tragic times. Isn't it wild how life works? Our highest highs and our highest hills and our lowest valleys can all somehow simultaneously be happening all at once. The happy and the sad, the joy and the heartbreak. And it all comes together to create a life that if you're blessed and lucky enough will look like his. We love you, Grandpa, big bunch, and we will see you again.
Thank sit and watch the waves come in this morning and wonder where they've come from. The one drop of water, how far has it traveled to crash upon my beach? What has it seen in its travels? What has it accomplished? Has it cracked open clams, washed away beaches or homes? Has it watered crops to feed thousands to be evaporated and then used again? Then I wonder where you will have me go today and what choices I will make. Will I build or tear down? Will I hold up or rip apart? When I realize that you have left that part up to me, I'm astounded by the faith you have in me, and I'm humbled by your patience. It is now my choice. Thank you. May I be up to the sacred task. Well, thank you, Tyler. He was a deep thinker. Let's have a word of prayer after this. So quickly. Eternal God, our Heavenly Father, who loves us with an everlasting love, and can turn the shadow of death into the light of day, help us now to wait upon you with contrite and believing hearts, that as we hear the words of eternal life, we may have faith, hope, and be lifted above this darkness and distress into the light of your peace and presence. We are faced with the reality of death, for a loved one has come to the end of this temporal life. Even so, we put our trust in you. Give us comfort in our sorrow, especially after these words, Lord, that we've heard today. Help us to focus on you and the eternity you offer through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Amen. Now, it's common at times like this to feel a loss for words, and we long for meaning and to try to explain what's happened, how we feel. And just sometimes, such times we discover the words of others, and especially words of life, eternal words of life, which help us to focus, yes, on the future and our hope. And the future, it helps us to focus with words that we couldn't say ourselves. So listen to me as I continue with some words of truth. A reading from Psalm 139, you may know this. O Lord, you've examined my heart, and you know everything about me. You know when I sit down or stand up. You know my thoughts, even when I'm far away. You see me when I travel, and when I rest at home. You know everything I do. You know what I'm going to say before I say it. You go before me and follow me, and you place your hand of blessing on my head. And such knowledge is too wonderful to me. It's too great for me to understand. I can never escape from your spirit. I can never get away from your presence. If I go up to heaven, you are there. And if I go down to the grave, you are there. And if I ride the wings in the morning, if I dwell by the farthest oceans, even there your hand will guide me. Your strength will support me. I could ask the darkness to hide me, and the light around me become as night. But even in darkness, I cannot hide from you. To you, the night shines as bright as the day, and darkness are as light to you. Reading from Paul's letters to Thessalonica, the Thessalonians, a letter of hope. And now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to the believers who have died, so you will not grieve like people who have no hope. For since we believe that Jesus died and was raised to life again, we also believe that when Jesus returns, God will bring back with him the believers who have died. We tell you this directly from the Lord. We who are still living when the Lord returns will not meet him ahead of those who have died. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trumpet call of God. And first, the believers who have died will be raised from their graves. Then, together with them, we who we're still alive and remain on the earth will be caught up. Yes, we'll be caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. Then we will be with the Lord forever. So encourage each other with these words. Now, final reading from the book of Revelation. God is showing you, O mortal, what is good. God has shown us what is good. What does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly before your God. Over the last few weeks, as I learned more about Len's life, I began to see how this passage served as a type of life purpose statement. What do I mean by a life purpose statement? Well, it's a statement that helps us maintain focus in the daily rhythms of life. It not only integrates the qualities of being and doing, which makes up most of our life, but also provides a way of balancing the perspective we have on life. In our life, what are the three things the Lord requires of us? Well, it's to seek justice, love kindness, and walk humbly before our God. Here, the Lord, through the prophet Micah, is giving us some practical advice on how to live out God's will for our lives. However, as human beings, the Lord knew we needed someone. We needed a living example to show us how to live out these qualities, didn't he? Well, out of God's great love for us, he not only sent the Lord Jesus to show us the way back to himself and give us the hope of eternal life, but to show us the way to a more abundant life. All of this is possible for those that confess their sins, turn to God, and put their faith in Jesus Christ. That's what Len did. And it changed him. It changed him, and it left a legacy that's before us today. Now, since it's through the good news or gospel about Jesus Christ, we get a sense of God's heart to reach out and draw us back to him. Let's try to take a look at this through the gospel lens. Look at this passage through a gospel lens. For example, the first place Jesus begins to unpack kingdom principles for living is in chapter 5 of Matthew's account of the good news. Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew 5, verse 6, Jesus said, God blesses those who hunger and thirst for justice, for they will be satisfied. Well, on this side of heaven, that can be a messy topic. Many of us could create a list of topics as to what we feel justice looks like. As Jesus began this great sermon, although he is addressing his disciples, it's also a message to us and to the church. In the scriptures, righteousness is the act of living out God's moral law free from the guilt of sin. In other words, sin are offenses we have committed against God and, of course, one another. Wow. If this is the case, we need God's help every moment of every day. Now, justice is not only the act of using laws fairly, but not withholding from others what they deserve. It's being merciful toward others. And we've heard, had little glimpses of that through Len's testimonies this morning. In fact, true justice involves loving others. And if we have a one another perspective in mind, we will begin to do to others as we would have them do to us. This is what I mean by a gospel focus, and in fact, that's simply the golden rule, isn't it? Both justice and righteousness go hand in hand. They are two sides of the same coin. Now, what does Jesus have to say about love kindness? First and foremost, kindness involves being in relationships that are built on love. And we've heard about those relationships this morning. The Lord Jesus helps us to understand what this looks like when he says, God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. To seek kindness is based on being merciful. It's a heartfelt desire to understand those around us by being compassionate, forgiving offenses, listening, being generous, and even bringing comfort to others. Of course, even when it's not convenient. Later, just before Jesus was betrayed by one of his inner circle, yes, his very own friends, he said to his disciples, just as I have loved you, love one another. Even in the brokenness this side of heaven that To do this, we seek God's help through the work of the Holy Spirit. We can't do this alone. Also, it's a one another activity, isn't it? What we see here today, coming together as family and friends. Jesus stated, God blesses those who are humble, for they will inherit the whole earth. In other words, be happy because God's favor is upon those who don't try to impress others, but to be modest in your interactions with others. Why is this? Well, reason being, when Christ returns, these people will inherit and be an integral part of Christ's kingdom. Again, we not only need God's help, we need the help of one another to strive to live out this maxim in daily life. Yes, it's done together. Well, I believe Len realized we needed all these attributes to live out our life with God and each other. From his involvement with his church, his family, his work, which we heard this morning, friendships, there was this one another thread woven, wasn't there? Was woven through every one of those little testimonies this morning. Len has left a legacy that you can all be proud of. And I believe he has left us with one question to ponder. What does the Lord require of us as we go from here today? So just ponder that for a moment and we're going to stand and sing one more hymn, Amazing Grace. We'll call Cindy and Adam. thank you, too, for the assurance that he is now safe with you in perfect peace and in fullness of joy. Our God, even as we thank you for the joy of knowing him, we ask you to reach out and touch those of us who feel his loss most keenly. Help us to love one another. Touch us with your peace as we pray.